Hey, this is Big Guy DIY Robert coming to you with another video. This will be hub number 2 for this month. I had to work on my son's 2005 Tacoma. He lost a hub on that thing eventually. It failed. And now it's my turn. So mileage on my F150, I'm 1,000 miles shy of 200,000 miles on this pickup. Give you an idea. So I've done a lot of maintaining this pickup to prevent it from rusting, and I want to get as many miles as I can from it. I've already done the hub on the left side. I don't know, I think it's probably 20,000 miles ago. While I was on vacation, during vacation, I started to hear a vibration coming out of this. So those who've never done a hub or are curious on what the telltale signs are for a hub that's beginning to fail is at a certain miles per hour you'll hear this loud humming vibration noise, and it always tends to happen at a certain speed. It's not all speeds, it's just like a fixed miles per hour. So for me it was at 55. I can hear this growling, roaring noise. It sounded like I had an extra knobby tire on my truck. How do I decipher between left and right? As I just kind of listen to see which side of the truck the noise is coming from. That's one telltale sign of a hub beginning to fail. You go any faster than that, the noise kind of goes away. You go any slower than that, the noise goes away. When the hub is completely failed, the noise is consistent regardless of RPMs. What happens is the grease inside the hub begins to fail. It's not lubricating the bearings within inside. So that's the reason why a hub fails. Hubs are not forever, for sure. So I was able to nurse this back. Well, I don't want to say nurse it. I still drove 65 back home with it. And another thing I checked is the temperature. So whenever I pulled off to the side of the freeway, I would the rim of my tire. If it is super hot, that means the heat is transferring from the hub and the bolts, lug nuts or lug bolts, to the rim. And it got to a point when I finally got home, you couldn't touch the tips of the lug nuts. It was so hot. Here's the other thing I just noticed. As you look on each lug nut, that is grease on there, but the grease is clunked up. It's clumped up. So in a sense, it was starting to burn. Okay, that's how hot it was getting. I'm pulling the brake caliper off right now because I noticed the pads are a bit on the thin side. I'm not changing the rotor right now because I've already done this rotor a year ago, believe it or not. Though it does not look like it, it has been done. So what I'm going to do is pull this whole thing apart. So the first thing I'm doing is taking off my caliper. The thing I noticed when I pull the caliper off is clumps of grease. So the heat was kind of pushing the grease into burning the grease in there. The grease that's on these bolts is anti-seize. So give you an idea of the temperature that's involved with this. So I'm going to show you and tell you how to take this all apart. At the moment I'm going to take off because I don't have the pads with me. I was not expecting to do pads. I was expecting to do just the hub. So I will be back with some new pads and then we'll continue on taking this apart. I might as well start taking this apart right now because I don't have a ride to get new pads. So I will start doing that. So the first thing to do when taking the caliper off is you have two nuts, one up here, or two bolts, one up here and one down there, way down there. It's identical to this. These are your glides or your slides. They should slide like that. That's how the caliper works. It floats while it's on there, so the pads are not always sitting against the rotor. So I took mine off. We're going to hang it up. So what I do is I just grab a very thick coat hanger hook, and that's what we're going to hang the caliper with. Pull it off to the side and take it off. Next, I don't like that position. Next, we have to take the caliper housing off. There's a bolt here and a bolt here. The bolts for this vehicle, it's not the same for all vehicles. These are 14 millimeters for the caliper. I don't know the size of the caliper housing bolts, so I will do that next. Look at the brake pads. Whew, not much. Size of the socket is 22 millimeters. And I used a breaker bar to break these loose. So this is your caliper bracket. So everything on here works good. I'm seeing is this goes in and out. Sorry about the compressor. So since I've done these discs, rotors, whatever word you want to use, for me, they're gonna come right off. That easy. A little bit of rust on the inside, but that's just normal. Ooh, but this is what I see. Damn it, looks like I'm getting new rotors too. See this pad? It's only about an inch here. The pad should be going up to here. So let's flip it. See the difference? It's the whole width of the rotor. And we're missing probably about a third. So with new pads, I'm gonna buy new rotors. Was not expecting this. So as we inspect the hub here, now the hub is a pain in the butt to do. The next thing I have to do is take off this cap. This is what holds it on. Do not, and I can't express this greatly, do not use an impact to remove the nut behind this cap. I did that on my other one, and I actually sheared the bolt off, or the head of the axle, because that's what this is, the head of the axle, off. So I really, as they say, effed it up. So I had to go out. I was putting a new axle in anyways, so I ended up getting another axle, because it was a new axle that I sheared. Putting another new axle in and put it in. The reason why I was replacing the axle is because the boot was cracked. And you can't just replace the boots. It's, you know, there are boot kits to replace these, but it's a joke. Just get a brand new axle. You got the boot already installed properly on there. You won't have any problems. So next, I'm going to remove this and then the nut. The hub is held on by 4 bolts. The axis of the bolts are back here. Here on the bottom, top corner, bottom right. This is the head of the bolt, or I should say the bottom of the bolt. So by loosening this, then you work on these, because this is not going to go anywhere if you don't loosen this piece first. You might get some movement, you may not, but I just found it easier when I did mine to remove this first, then go to these. You're not going to have a ton of room to play with, but that's what it is. So to get this off, I just use a very small flathead screwdriver and just kind of work my way around the whole cap to pry it off. While I'm thinking of it, another thing to tell if your hub is going is once you get your, there's a couple of ways. One is the shaking of the tire while you have the vehicle jacked up. Do you have movement back and forth? The other way is to turn the tire, but the problem is when I turn the tire on my truck, my tires are so heavy, there's no way you're going to feel that. So if I just turn the hub with the tire off backwards, with the tire off, turn the hub backwards, I can feel it. Very, very rough. And same for going forward. So my little pry bar wasn't working, so I'm just going with a regular screwdriver, a small hammer. We're just going to slowly tap it out. There we go. So, not damaged too badly. I can definitely round out this flat part, so this will be reusable. So this socket is 13 millimeters. That's all it is. Kind of amazing compared to GMC and the Toyota I've done and a couple other cars. This is so tiny. All the ones, you know, you got this mammoth 1 1/4 or 1 1/8 nut on there. So next, like I said, we're gonna do these bolts in the back. So I'm gonna turn the camera off for that because I don't need to record it. Once I get it loose, I'll come back and turn it back on for this part. Now I've kept one bolt in. Now if you look right here in the top of the hub, there's a sensor. Sensor wire goes behind the dust plate, runs up along the side, along here, and then there is a quick disconnect up here. So let me show you the new hub and show you what we're looking at. So here's your front. Here's your back. This gear is when you switch your truck into 4-wheel drive. It's an air actuator that presses a gear over this cog and puts your truck into 4-wheel drive. That's if you're wondering what this cog is for. Here's the sensor. So it already comes with attachments to go into the factory holes that are in the fender area. This is what I bought. This is from AutoZone. This is their gold model, so $250 I think it is for this one. If you want the part number, that's it. Again, this is a 2014 F150 XLT with a 5-liter engine. Obviously I get the other side off because I'm going to do pads, and since I'm doing pads, I'm going to take that stupid rotor off too and put a new rotor on. So I got 2 new rotors. So before I knock this hub off, I wanted to unplug the sensor and take the hub off. Now, yeah, we're doing an F-150, but you will find other vehicles, like for the example, the Toyota Tacoma that I did, these bolts that are used to hold the hub in may not come out. They may just, the threads may just turn enough where the hub will come off, but the bolt actually stays within the housing itself. It just unbolts from the hub. So yeah, for this it comes out, but if you're using this video for something else to kind of reference it, that's what may happen. So right now I have to disconnect the cable from here. See, this is just a quick thing. I got to pull it out of here. I've already pulled it out up here. And then I got to disconnect it up there. So let me disconnect this whole cable and we'll come back to this. Interesting plug. So you got to get a flathead screwdriver up here. First you got to get this red part up. Then you got to get the flathead screwdriver underneath there to push it up to get it to unhook from this side. I want you to be able to see that. There. So, where did I put my... The heads for this hub is 19 millimeters. So next, I'm going to grab a mallet, give this a whack to break it loose. I should not have to hit the head of this axle coming through. But as you saw in the new hub, you have that cog that attaches to the four-wheel drive mechanism. If I'm able to see it when I pull this hub off, I don't remember. But when we pull it off, I'll show you a closer look of that unit. Here we go. Now, there is, obviously it goes in one way, wires at the top, wires at the top. And this is the cog I was telling you about. That cog is fitting into this ring here, this ring gear. And that's it's controlled through a vacuum system. And that's this hose here that goes up, and that's what triggers the four-wheel drive. Now, before I put this all back in, I'm going to clean the face of this and then grease everything. And what I tend to use is waterproof grease, which I think I left it in the garage, course, but I use waterproof grease because the environment that I live in is a lot of salt in the winter time from all the snow, and then in the summer months we're down by the coast, so you get the salt air, and so it's just salt, salt, salt all the time. So with the waterproof grease that I will use in this, in fact, let me get the damn stuff. Hang on. So any salt or water intrusion, this stuff will not come off. It will keep everything greased up. That's why I use it. This is obviously used in the marine industry, considering the name Evinrude Johnson. So let me clean this up, and then we're gonna grease this up. Now, one thing when you're getting this together is you're trying to get this cog to mesh with the other gear inside as you put it on. So as I put it on, I'm turning this at the same time to feel it lock in. And then I'm pushing it at the same time. I'm also going to put the nut on here to kind of pull the axle into it. So again, do not use an air wrench for this. I'm just doing it hand tight. That's the way it was when I took it off. It was just hand tight, and that was from the factory. It wasn't from me. Now, I'm sure there is a foot-pounds torque spec for this, but it's just a lock nut. It's not cranking. It's not the same as the ones that have a much bigger axle coming through. It's just this point. You do too tight, you're going to shear this damn thing off. So by tightening that up, it has brought the axle in. Now I can turn it, and the gears are meshed together. So now I can go ahead and tighten the bolts behind it. And I'm not gooping a lot of anti-seize on. As for torque, I think I read it was 30 pounds for torque, foot-pounds for torque for these 4 bolts. I'm not going to use a torque wrench because my torque wrench is over 2 feet long. There's no way in hell I can get a torque wrench in here. I know they make shorter versions or shorter lengths, but I don't own one. Mine is for doing outside lug nuts, or where I have a lot of space to work with. I don't have that. So what I'm going to just do is use an extra long knuckle head to tighten these up to my strength. And trust me, I've broken a few bolts myself, so I'm not worried about them being not tight enough. Now, one thing I wanted to show on my truck, I have the V8 engine. Normally, your V8 engine wheel well is like this. It's wide open. I built this here to enclose it. Obviously when the suspension is up, this tucks inside behind here, the A-arm, and it just prevents all the crap and slush from getting kicked on the engine. So you can see the difference without the cover. The engine's wide open. Next is to reinstall the wire. Now before I put the plug in, I want to get some dielectric grease and put it on the prongs. Let me go grab that. So that's the grease I use. That's what's important. Electrical, so I can use it for that. Plug it in, and then push this red tab back down to lock it. Okay. Put it back up into its holder. So now the wire is installed. Close up my thing. All I did for this is I drilled holes into the panel, and then you can see what I use for the backside. If you ever wanted to do something like this. There. Next, rotors. But before I put them on, for some of those who follow what I do, no, I use anti-seize on everything. Someone asked a while back, does anti-seize affect the torque settings? Like, do you have to torque the nut or bolt further versus if you didn't use any anti-seize? I don't have an answer to that. I never heard of having to torque something harder because anti-seize. Anti-seize is just another type of grease. It just doesn't wash off as easily. It lasts a little longer. Obviously, it burns if a hub gets too hot. So that was kind of new to me. But I don't see how there'd be a different torque spec if you're using anti-seize. You're just trying to prevent the parts from rusting against each other so you can replace them or repair them over time. So let me get the hub. Actually, let me get the rotor. Again, I went back to AutoZone. I did the Duralast Gold brake rotor. Here's the information on it. So I'll hold up a comparison between the old one and between the new one. So the new one has a 3-year warranty on it. That's why I tend to buy it. A little better quality. Now that is on, we're going to install our caliper housing. Now I already have anti-seize on here, so I don't have to install more. It's already done. Now the torque specs for this, for these 2 bolts, I think it's 129, but don't quote me on it. Just look it up to verify it, but that's what it said. The only place I'm going to do some anti-seize is on the back side. Metal against metal. To tighten these, I'm just going to use a breaker bar. Grabbing a piece of pipe just to lengthen the handle. There. Next, these are the slides. I always re-grease my slides whenever I do brake pads. There's a variety of products out there. Don't be mild on this, goop the crap out of it. When I say goop the crap out of it, I mean put a lot on there. And then when you slide the slide back in, turn it at the same time so the boot will slide over the lip. As the boot slides in, there's a lip that's bigger than the boot, and you want the boot to go over that. That's what seals the boot over the slide. Now if you pull, I would never pull both slides out at the same time. I think this one, yeah, it might be the top one. A lot of times these slides will have a rubber O-ring, a fat rubber O-ring on the end of it here in the tip, and one specifically goes in one location while the other one that does not have it goes in another location. That has to do with the return and the opening closure of your caliper and the pads, because with the rubber boot it slows it from opening, so the pads are always kind of on an angle as they close on your rotor or disc, whichever word you'd like to use. Don't confuse these two up. I've had the slides where the one with the rubber grommet is at the top, and I've had other ones where the rubber grommet is on the bottom. Alright, that's done. Next, I need a C-clamp. In order to put the new brake pads in, you have to get the hydraulic cylinders within the caliper back into its own housing. So that's these two things here. They have to be compressed back in. So the trick to that, take the old brake pad, drop it inside, C-clamp, and just clamp it on, and it'll push those cylinders back into their own housing. And there you go, they're pushed back into their own housing. Now, a little advice on this. When you do this, and you put your pads on, you get the thing all reassembled, you want to pump your brakes a few times with the vehicle running, because when you're squeezing this, you're actually pushing the fluid out of the caliper housing back into the reservoir. So there's no pressure. You push the pressure backwards. So pump the brakes a few times, get the pressure built up, and then go back and forth in your driveway, hitting the brake really hard to get the pressure back up, and then go for a ride. Don't put new pads in and then head out right away. You want to get that pressure built back up. Next, the new pads. This kit here, again, here's your part number. I buy this kit because it also gives me the hardware. The hardware is what goes right here. Top, bottom, back side, top side. Just pop it off with a flathead. And the new one pops in place. Now our pads. Okay, before I put the caliper over this, here we go again. Because the caliper housing touches this area. I'm just putting a little here on the hardware so it slides. Now we grab our caliper housing. Put our first bolt in on the top, then screw it in place. And there we go. Caliper slides right over the pad. That's why we compress the caliper and get those pistons back into their housing. The foot per pounds on these, I don't know. I've never used it. I just go relatively tight. I can feel when I'm going to strip a bolt in the threads. So that's my experience. So don't go by my experience. Go relatively snug. Don't go just tight. Relatively snug. And no, the bolt won't back out because it has anti-seize on it. If someone says my bolt backed out because I used anti-seize, well, they obviously didn't do it tight enough. So it's called human error. There. New hub, new rotors, new pads. So before we put the wheel back on, which I'm not going to record that, there's no reason. But anti-seize again. And there we go. Oh, there is one thing I forgot. Cap. So with the screwdriver, I just sort of got rid of that flat spot. So when you hammer this back on, do it in light taps. These are tricky to get on any vehicle. There, done. So, new hub, wiring installed. Get rid of my hook, my protector installed, new rotor, new pads. Now I was not anticipating to do any of this. I was just going to do the hub and that was it. But this is what happens sometimes when you work on something. You find, okay, well, there's more. Total cost. The hub was $240, and that's the gold model, as I mentioned earlier. The rotors, 2 rotors, and a set of pads for the front end was another $300. So we're at $550 for total equipment. And today's date is August 8th, 2025. So we'll be curious how this price changes in the next year or two. So I know that a garage, so I have a Mazda 3, They wanted to charge me $800 to do the rear brakes, $500 for the front brakes. That's just the pads. That's not the rotors. It's not the hubs. Nothing like that, just the pads. Total time for this, if I didn't have to make the trip, I'm probably looking at under an hour per side, easily. So 550, both sides done, with new rotors, new pads, and one new hub. Give you an idea of cost. If you have any questions or comments, rifle them down below in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up if this helped. Please don't forget to subscribe, because it does help the channel. And I will do my best to answer any questions. I do check the YouTube page once in a while for comments or questions. I don't do it every day, I'll be honest with that, because I'm kind of a bit busy. And that's really it. So this is Big Guy DIY, Robert, signing off. Have a great remaining summer. And school year starts in 2 weeks for all the kiddies, or the kiddie poos. And that's it. Have a good one. Take care. Thanks for watching.